talking to Laura Martin, who is the founder of Healing to Happy, which is an online holistic gut brain focused company that is helping women develop a healthier relationship with food so they can overcome such things like IBS, anxiety, and a whole bunch more. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with her. This should be highly enlightening, and that is coming up next. Welcome to Moving Upstream Without a Paddle, the podcast that helps develop a mindset for success. I'm your host, Dr. Garret Goggans, but most people call me Dr. G. Now, I've dedicated my life to helping others understand that if you have the proper mindset, you can propel yourself up that proverbial stream with no paddle needed. After constantly feeling like you're going against the flow, but you're never happy with your results, it's really time to flip your mindset. If that's something that you're ready to do, you've come to the right place. Now let's get to it. All right, we are live here with Laura. Laura, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So it's pretty typical on my show where I like to give my guests just the center stage right at the beginning, let them tell their story, their background, whatever it is. They are inspired to tell, and we'll just go from there.
Sure. So hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Laura Martin. I'm the creator and founder of Healing to Happy. After, oh my goodness, 10, 13 years, I guess, of struggling with IBS and anxiety and depression, I found myself just in a slew of health issues that I had no idea were interconnected. And I was on a mission to at first heal my brain, which is like the background in psychology and all that kind of fun stuff. And then the foreground trying to heal my relationship with food. But at the same time, those two together really messed up my gut. And I was pushing forward to figure out how to heal my IBS and not just manage it, but everything out there that I was looking into was about restriction and eliminations and fasting and all this kind of stuff that someone that has a history of an eating disorder really that's way too triggering, can't do that. And so that's what led me down the path of one, understanding the gut brain connection, because I was like sitting in my naturopath's office, just crushed, like had no idea what else to do, just in so much pain. My hormones were out of whack. My hair was falling out. My skin was flaring up. There was so much anxiety, so much depression, just feeling at a loss and not knowing, like having the best intentions, right? Like following every diet to a T. And I was like the gut queen and had everything. And I was studying it. And I was a certified digestive health specialist. Like I was doing it, but I couldn't figure it out for myself. And so it was when I was sitting in her office, just like sobbing and like, that like not knowing like what to do kind of sob, that was me. And she was like, Laura, do you want to talk about how your depression is linked to your IBS? And I was like, what are you talking about? One, like I was so depressed that like I was used to feeling that way because that had been that was my baseline for so many years. And two, what are you talking about, this gut brain connection thing? And that's what led me down this whole rabbit hole. And I was able to create this method that I now use with clients called the free method, and realized, like IBS is just a blanket statement for gut brain dysregulation. And when you can heal that, you don't actually have to follow all these protocols and eliminations and restrictions, and you can actually heal your mind, body, and soul in one clean sweep and get back to, enjoying pizza and chicken wings and things that are fun in life.
Right. So I think this is interesting because, especially when it comes to the mindset aspect, that I like how we say there's this relationship with food, right? And in any relationship, and I've talked about this before, but I've never brought it into a relationship with food, right? So relationships with your spouse, with friends, with business partners, and all that. Those relationships are built off of a mindset. So talk, if you can, just kind of bring into the forefront, like what mindsets and this relationship with food, what does that look like? And especially with maybe your history and the idea of how you overcame that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're like asking like our relationship towards foods and how that is affected by our health.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we nowadays, like there is a diet for everything. You can't go to a lunch with someone sitting down with you and going, I can't eat that. I can't, I'm doing this diet this week and what have you. It's like food has lost its pleasure principle, its community principle, its functionality. Like we're so focused on what we're not supposed to be eating that we're stressed out over, oh, can I have that? Can I do this? When we're in this state of stress, we don't really view food as the same anymore. And when we're in, so bringing it back to like the gut brain connection, right? So if you are stressed, you're not digesting. You know, we've all heard recently, like the gut is our second brain. And there's two reasons because of this. It's one, it functions entirely on its own through the enteric nervous system. You don't have to tell your food to digest, your lungs to breathe, your heart to beat, all that kind of stuff. It does it all on its own. Two, you have neurotransmitters within your gut lining like serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, dopamine, all these kind of things that make you feel good, cool, calm, and collected. And when you're stressed out, when you're not eating enough, when you're not eating enough of the right foods, your body is going to freak out and not digest these foods. And this is why I have a lot of clients come to me that have tried it all. They're like, but I'm eating perfectly. Like, what is going on? And you're like, well, because you're not eating right for your body and you're probably stressed out about if that food is right for you because we can't look at food anymore. We're so concerned, like, especially women that come to me, right? Like they've been struggling with IBS for years and they're like, does it have garlic or onions or gluten or dairy or shellfish or any of that stuff? And I'm like, when like a healthy body can digest all types of foods. And when you can get back to looking at food normally and understanding how to build functional plates and how to really just release all these notions, you can get back to not only eating well and not feeling like bloated and run down and having flare-ups and having to like sprint to the bathroom, but also like you're able to function in your life properly. You're able to focus on work. You're able to show up in your relationships. You're able to explore without worrying, hey, I can't go on a road trip because I don't know where the nearest bathroom is, right? Like we can get back to actually having our life back when we understand how to use food optimally.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, I think, in any aspect. So I always talk about the thought process and what that looks like, right? So when most people, when they're defining things in life or when they're trying to accomplish certain situations, I always try to teach them to focus more on the goal rather than the current results that you're having, because with that thought process, the conscious, those upfront conscious thoughts are getting pressed into the subconscious mind, which are generating feelings, which gives you essentially results, right? So this is the exact same thing, and it just kind of proves that it's going throughout every aspect of your life. So if you're consciously thinking and always thinking about, like you said, where do I can't go on vacation because I need to know where the nearest bathroom is and this and that. That's all focusing on these current results and causing more stress. And so you just end in this cycle of behavior that, like you were saying, you can't even digest properly because you're so just out there and worrying and the stress aspect. And so when you were going through your process and you learned all this, how did you actually switch this idea, to you understand what I'm saying? Like, because that's not an easy paradigm to break right there, right? When you go through life worried about this stuff. So how did you go through and really try to flip that programming in your mind?
Yeah. And mind you, like it wasn't even dieting for me anymore. Like it started as dieting and because I had an eating disorder since I was 12. Like I couldn't look at food already normally, let alone now I was in pain. And so really it came from surrounding myself with the right team. Like when you're struggling in that kind of way, when you're struggling with not being able to eat and stressing out and all that kind of stuff, going at it alone, it's going to take you so long. And it took me years because I thought I was alone in it. I thought I had to, read the books, go to Dr. Google, do all that kind of stuff. And I realized, oh, wait, no, like if I actually surround myself with a team of experts that have been through this. And that was like, I had naturopaths, I had GI doctors, I had nutritionists, I was in school for it. Like I was doing all that kind of stuff. And that's really what it worked. And then it came back to really understanding, instead of focusing so heavily on the foods that weren't working for me, I focused more on what was. Like, what were those foods that made me feel good and energized and really like had me being able to eat normally, and worked with that. And as I started to focus more on the foods that made me feel good, I was like, oh wait, there's actually a lot more out there than I was focusing on. And then that led me down, okay, let me experiment with some different foods. Let me try this kind of thing. And it really was like a dual approach of, yes, we were taking the nutrition side, but at the same time, I was also taking the lifestyle and really taking responsibility for the way I was responding to these kind of things. Because if I wasn't feeling well, right, like I was quote unquote doing the right things and I had good intention at this point, but I wasn't, if I was looking at how my body was responding, it was one of those things of like, okay, no, like this whole fasting and this whole low FODMAP and all this kind of stuff, it's clearly not working because my hair is falling out. Like, I don't know what else to do. Right. And so after looking at that, I'm like, okay, like I'm not at fault for what has happened over this period of my life that has led these autoimmunities and these things to kind of flare up in my body, but I am responsible for how I've been choosing to respond. And so when I sat there, I started taking my power back, as opposed to going into like doctor's office and things like that, where they're like, oh, like this is what's wrong with you, here's a medication, or this is what's wrong with you, here's a supplement, or here is a diet that you need to go on. I was like, oh wait, no. And I started getting my power back and asking more just authoritative questions of like, but why am I doing that? What is that going to do for me? How do I apply this in my normal day life? And I realized that required a team.
Right. And I think what you just said is the choice. When you chose to do this and you chose to when you said, take your power back, that choice, to me, that is your power. When you choose to respond rather than to react in the way that we have been, that I tell everybody, that's our superpower, or that choice to respond and not react. That's a game changer. And so when you went through that, you began to, that's not a knee-jerk reaction. You're saying, okay, now I'm educating myself, and what do I do, and how do I respond to this? And I think that taking that power back, just in general, eases a lot of the anxiety that's there, because you have this empowerment, where I feel like anxiety is more, you don't know what to do. You feel like you have no choice and you have no power. And so I think that's a really interesting and amazing aspect that you went through to really overcome the situation that you were in.
Thank you. And it goes both ways, right? Like, because you can have anxiety of not knowing what's next, and then you can have anxiety of having too much control, that it's just like spazzing you out. And so you really do, it's like reverse dieting and really being like, okay, like, can I actually live this way for the rest of my life? And breaking up with that notion if that answer is no.
Right. So when do you feel like when people are coming to you and you're trying to help them? So this is an interesting thing. So you took power, right? And so because you went through that journey and you have clients that are coming to you who are in that same position, and you're trying to help them through this, what advice, where do you start? I guess that's the better question. Where do you start with them to say, all right, because, they come in with this idea, they may not be where you were in life, where you made these choices, so you have to kind of guide them through the process and make them get to that point where you were. So what's the starting point with that?
Yeah. And I mean, it's totally different from when I started too, because now, yes, we had those food sensitivity tests and those microbiome tests and what have you, but they weren't as popular as they are now. And so everyone comes to me and they're like, I have this test. I'm allergic, quote unquote, to this food. And I'm like, you're not allergic. Like, there's a very big difference between those two words. And so they'll come in hands ready, being like, no, like I can't have this. I can't do that. I can't do that. So I first start with them going, okay, so like, what is this fear around all this? Like, what is that flare up? What is all this kind of stuff? And we really start, and this is what the F and the free method starts with, is we start at the foundations. And this doesn't have to do with, oh, you flip, like on your food sensitivity test, it said you can't have eggs. I'm like, I don't care about that. Like, yes, okay, certain things, if you have like SIBO or if you have Crohn's or things like that, yes, we have to take a specialized approach. But if it's IBS, honestly, I don't care about that. I care about why you can't digest those foods to begin with, which goes back to metabolic function. And so when we can start focusing on that, and I'm working with them being like, it's not like you can eat carbs, you're totally cool. Actually, as a woman of reproductive age, you should be eating carbs. So let's work on that. And if you have a flare up, it's because you haven't had them for a long time. And this is why your microbiome doesn't have this diversity within inside of it. So you're going to get bloated. That's just the reality of it. But the more you consistently have these foods in your diet, the stronger this microbiome will be. And this is where, like with the R comes in, where you reprogram your gut bacteria so that it can actually digest these foods without causing this unpredictability or the cramping or all that kind of flare up stuff that we're trying to avoid. But honestly, like the only way through and out is getting through it. Like you have to swim through it. And the more you avoid stuff, the harder it's going to be and the more long-term health damage, because you're just putting a Band-Aid over the symptom, right? A symptom is a sign. And when you can look at that as granting it permission, going like, okay, yes, this sucks. Like this is not something I'm enjoying right now, but this is a sign that my body is trying to tell me what I'm doing is not working. And so I work with them hand in hand going, okay, yeah, I know this sucks, but I'm in that trenches with you because I went through it. I totally get it. Here's some things we can help to do to help manage those symptoms for now while we work on the larger picture, and the long-term solution is to health and sustainability and longevity of getting to the root as to why you're not digesting these foods, which comes back to your gut-brain dysregulation and metabolic function.
Right. That's it's that there's the awareness aspect, and there's always an awareness aspect. I tell people all the time that before awareness precedes change. So one, like you were saying, first, let's just become aware of what's going on, why it's going on, and all these issues. And then we can start to really begin to make this change. And I also feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in this journey, that awareness, when you sit down with people and you start to go over the reasons, the real reasons why, and say that it's not so much, I don't even know how to say this, but when you go over the truths, the real aspects, and that awareness, even in that point, will begin to calm that anxiety, because you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then it's easier at that point to go through that. And yes, like you were saying, you still have to go through the muck, you have to go through the process, and it sucks at first. But as long as you are persistent and you keep going on, that change will eventually occur. And then the whole holistic approach, that whole healthiness it's going to happen. And then from there, it's again, you just created a new cycle, right? So now, where we were talking before, you're cycling through stress and this and that, and it's creating all the same digestive issues that you were having. Now you're on a new cycle, that positivity, and everything is working in the way it's supposed to be working. So I mean, those are very important points. But then on the same time though, so as you go through that awareness and they're working through the muck, right, that they're doing that persistency, how do you keep them focused and motivated in that aspect?
You give them quick wins in the beginning, right? Because when you can actually focus, like my clients will start, honestly, like on repeat, have tested this for 5 years. Within 3 weeks, they start to feel better. That is my mission. Of course, you're not totally healed, right? Like that's why the program goes longer than that. But within 3 weeks, you start to feel a little bit better. So you get that momentum going. You're like, oh, I feel good. Like I can get this. I can consistently show that up to this, as opposed to when you're following a restrictive low FODMAP diet or like a really expensive supplement regime where like you miss it one day and then you have anxiety because you're like, I'm trying to travel and I slept over at a friend's house and I don't have it with me. And then you're like, your brain is just like running wild. So I give them a quick win within the first 3 weeks, because that is how you keep showing up. And that's anything in life, right? Like we set these long-term goals, right? Like I want to have X in the next 10 years. And you have this beautiful, beautiful goal, but we forget we got to bring it back to today. What is that one step we can start taking every single day that will help perpetuate that big dream? Because if we have that big dream and we're just chasing that, it's going to get caught up with everyday life. We're going to have a setback, and then we're going to not be motivated to do it anymore, which is why diets don't work, which is why all these kind of things, it's like, I don't believe in those like 30-day, what have you. It's you get on board with something you consistently do, and you're like, okay, so what's the one thing we're going to do? And honestly, I start my clients on, this is where like the gut diary that I have my clients do, it's tracking not just like calories and macros and what have you, but like, are you eating enough of the right foods at the right times in the right order? If not, once you track that down and have that general awareness, we could start making moves towards that. Maybe it's just like drinking a bit more water, eating a bit more of the right kind of fibers. Maybe you need more protein. Like you don't know that until you start tracking. And that quick win, when you jump back in a call with me, you're like, oh, I noticed this. I notice this, I'm feeling more energized when I actually have breakfast, and like different things like that. And then we start to do the deeper work beyond that.
Right. Well, that's an important point too, to what I had said earlier, right? So not focusing on your current results, keeping your mind on the prize, but doing it on the present moments. So, because if you focus on the prize, that end result, because again, that's still a result that we're trying to focus on. We have to get those intermittent wins, because if I'm focusing on that end and I'm not getting there, in this microwave society mindset that we have, that causes the same stress, right? Because then you're going to go back to where, now you're in this current results. But then when you say, I have this goal, and I always tell my son, because he used to do everything. He just thought so far ahead. He was when he wasn't even in high school yet. He wasn't even in middle school, and he was thinking about his career path, and it would stress him out. It literally would. He would think, because at the time he wanted to be in the Air Force. He wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. He wanted all this, and then he would go and look into it and started looking at the requirements to be in the Air Force Academy and the requirements for what if I can never make it? What if this? I'm like, dude, just backtrack that a little bit. What can you do today to get to what you want for tomorrow? And then that's your win. When you accomplish those tasks, yay, you had enough water. You ate the foods in the right amounts at the right time. And I mean, celebrate that crap, right? Because that's good stuff right there. When you came from that stress aspect where you were before to these daily wins, I mean, it's inspiring, and that really does lift you up and help you to progress on. So it is important to, yes, you have this end result, this end goal, but that end goal in the present tense, in the present, is what we really want to focus on.
Exactly. And Dr. Garret, you hit it on the head, where it's just like, you have to celebrate it. Like, we are so caught in these moments of letting that inner either mean guy, mean girl beat us up all the time, of like, oh, we didn't do this right, we didn't go, we didn't sleep our 8 hours, we didn't drink enough water, we didn't eat enough vegetables, I forgot to move today, what have you, because life happens. And so when we can actually look at, oh, but you know what I did do, if you look at it one at a week at a glance. I hate these also, like, yes, there's the minor things, like you made your bed in the morning or what have you, but like, look at it from a week to week glance, because if you're looking day to day that you're trying to succeed in these things, it's not going to work, because life is always going to happen, my friend. Like, things are going to happen. People are going to show up on your doorstep. You're going to stay out too late. You're going to miss some sleep because a kid kept you up late at night. But if you look at the week to week glance, you're like, okay, so I can actually make this up here. I can do better here. And looking at it in that way, it actually is more sustainable, as opposed to, I need to get it perfect every single day. It's like, not really. Like, life is always gonna come swinging.
Right. And it's important to forgive yourself too. And I use the word forgive, because we do, when life happens, we blame ourselves, like, oh, I should. Well, who can plan for every little thing? Like you said, kids that they get sick and you have to like adjust, or Colorado, I live in Colorado Springs, we just had this huge snowstorm, and it didn't shut the city down, but we had to pivot with that, and some people are missing work today. I had to call and reschedule appointments this morning, and blah blah blah. I have no control over that. If that bites into some of this time that I needed for my goal, just forgive the event. It's like, yep, that sucked, but that's done. It's over with. What's my next step? And then we progress from where we're at and not from where we were, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I think it's amazing how every aspect of life really kind of intertwines. And I think our bodies, we were just built this way, right? Everything that we do, our mind, the physical aspect, the digestive aspect, the heart-mind connection, the gut-brain connection, all that stuff, when we can figure out how to tap into the way we were supposed to do things, how efficient our body and our mind and everything really is. And I love having you on here, because this is a whole aspect that I never even considered going down. And I guess my next question for that, and I know you focus on mainly women, which is cool, but I always, I feel like we are humans, right? And whether there's certain things that women have to go through that men don't have to go through, and maybe vice versa, but this concept, this idea, it pertains to all of us because we're all this physical thing. So I just want to bring this point up because men can go through these same sort of things, and what you're saying is it's the same for them as it is for maybe the diet stuff is maybe a little bit different. I don't know because it's not my specialty, but just this idea that they can get in a better place just by developing a more healthier relationship with the food that they're eating, they could actually be in a better place holistically and overall.
Oh yeah. And one of the funniest things is like, so my partner, he is obviously started dating me, and his entire nutrition routine has kind of changed because it matches what I do. I do the cooking, what have you. But now he's like, oh, like I feel really good. Like I rocket, like it's like rocket fuel for my brain. And I see this so often with like the women that I work with, their husbands, 98% of the time sign up to work with me as well. Because they're like, wait, why is my wife like, she has all this energy, she's not like bouncing off the walls anymore, like she's actually quite like stable and focused, and like I can't keep up with her on our walks, like what's going on here? I want some, I want to play, like. And once people can kind of get in on that, where yes, I work with women, but everyone benefits from figuring out how to eat so that you have rocket fuel for your brain, right? Like, no, who wants to miss out on that? That's the key of life. And I think, I know a lot of people miss out on this because we're so used to how we commonly feel that we write it off as normal. And we don't actually know. And I did this as well. Like I was so depressed. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was depressed because I was diagnosed, but like, since it was over 13 years, I hadn't put the missing pieces together. I was like, no, like this is just my normal. I don't understand what you're even talking about. And that's because I didn't know how good it felt to feel good. And then that's what kind of got that momentum going. I was like, oh, wait, like when I actually eat the foods, eat enough of the right foods first off, and eat enough that my body actually is craving and needing, ooh, like I can't tell you last time I got angry. I mean, like obviously emotions happen and things like that, but like I used to fly off the handle all the time. I used to have such anger issues. It was called like the Fowler temper, like all this kind of stuff. But like now it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, like this is what it feels to be embodied. This is what it feels to be like yourself. And actually because you know when you're like at bottom baseline, and just because you're used to it, you're just like, yeah, like this is just how I feel. This is who I am, da, 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 da. But then you start to make this momentum, like whether it's through nutrition, whether it's through lifestyle choices, working out, meditation, what have you, you know how good it starts to feel when you actually start to accomplish one step in the right direction. And you're like, oh, wait, this isn't my baseline. And that's when that spark gets ignited. And you're like, ooh, I'm curious about something else, And that's why I never like write it off. And like if people align with me, what have you, and want to start with nutrition, that's cool too. But people will jump in and they'll be like, oh, I want to meditate, I want to work out, I want to eat well, da, da, da. I'm like, pick one, the rest will follow. They always do. Like, I don't know anyone that's like eating well, but like hates working out and doesn't take care of their mindset. Like it eventually all aligns together.
Yeah. And I think because, maybe this might even help people understand it a little bit more, but because of who we are as humans, we look to expand holistically, right? So that idea that if I start going into this into meditation, and I expand in that aspect, and I find myself in this higher state of who I am through meditation, then just by nature we're going to go, well, how else can I expand? Because like you were saying, this is a good feeling, and we build off of those feelings, whether we know it or not. Everything with us is based off of this energy, this vibrational state that we're in. So if we do start with diet and we go, oh, this is really great and this and that, then by nature, just naturally, we're going to say, well, where else can I expand myself? And that can go through, spiritual aspects, financial aspects, physical aspects, and, as in physical fitness, not just dietary stuff. And so it, like you were saying, it will behoove you to not say, because the other aspect when we go, all right, I'm just jumping head first into everything, then we become overwhelmed because we're not used to being. So that's where we're really fighting against our are already predefined habits that we had, and we have to change. You can't change 12 habits at a time. You have to pick one. And then once you get that one figured out, then the rest, and what's cool is once you get one figured out, you go, all right, well, I know the process of doing that. So the others just become easier to change those paradigms and to change that programming. And so that's just awesome advice to say, pick one or two. I mean, pick two areas in life. So you look like you had something to say.
Yeah, because you were talking about something like how the neurotransmitters in our brain like fire, right? Like through the synapses. So actually a lot of people are like, oh, like 21 days makes a habit. That's actually bollocks. Like it's 63 days to actually wire in a habit. And this is why you see high achievers, they can pick up habits a lot quickly because they're already well disciplined. They have the habits, they have the mindset. And when you're someone that's just starting out, honestly, pick one. Like whether it's brushing your teeth with your left hand in the morning and this is the new way you're going to do it. Like it could be the strangest thing, but you're going to stick with it for 63 days and you're not going to change it. And then from there, you can start building on new habits a lot more effectively, consistently, and sustainably. But if you do too many things at one time, it's too much for the like synapses and for your brain to take in because you are rewiring your brain when you create a new habit. So understanding it from like a physiological, biological point of view actually helps to understand that is like, it's not because you're like weak or what have you. It's just the way the human brain works and understanding how that is and starting with one simple thing and going from there.
And so does the same thing. So we talked about the small wins, but does the same thing happen when we're trying to change the habit of how we eat? Like, do you, when you go through your coaching or with your clients, do you say, all right, no, we're going to pick one little aspect of our diet that we're going to change and we go from there?
Exactly. I always start with breakfast. Honestly, like I start with breakfast, then we start with like lifestyle thing, and then we go to dinner because those are the two everyone struggles with. It seems that everyone's fine with lunch. Either they order it in, they go out with colleagues, or like they have a little snack. They have a routine for lunch for some, or they like forget it because they're busy moms. But we get them to that routine last. But dinner is always the one where like you only have so many decisions you can make in a day. So by the time you get to dinner, you're like nope, we're not doing that. We're ordering pizza. I don't have enough like human strength to even say no right now. Like I'm just hungry, get it done. This is why you see that happen. That's why you see binge eating. You see all that. Understanding that. Breakfast is the one that sets us up for success though, because this is where we start balancing out our blood sugar levels. So I'll always start people there, get that into a routine, make sure that because a lot of the women I work with are stuck on that whole fasting train, all that kind of stuff. And we want to get into that normalcy of eating breakfast again, retraining our body to actually be hungry, getting into the, because having a hunger is actually really sexy. Like you should be hungry. That's a normal thing to have. And we started to demonize it. So getting into that, then we start with dinner and then we do lunch.
Yeah, breakfast would be my thing because I don't eat breakfast. I don't know why. And I just, maybe, I don't know why. I really don't. I never really took the time to sit down and go, why don't you eat breakfast? And maybe, I don't know. I always told myself, one, that I'm not a morning person. And I think a lot of people will say that. So like, I'm not a morning person. And so I don't necessarily want to get up and eat breakfast and make that because blah, blah, blah. Well, I have learned that you are what you say you are. So the more you tell yourself that you're not a morning person and that's why you're not making breakfast and this and that, this is where you have to flip the conversation. Like, what are you telling yourself? What's that self-talk? And is this, do you see this a lot in your clients, is that they talk to themselves about food and the things that, like I tell myself, there's things that I don't like to eat. And I had this conversation with my son because he's crazy picky, and his pickiness comes more from he has hypersensitivity to textures the things that he puts in his mouth. So foods that he just overthinks it now. He's like, if I've never tried it before, now I'm building this anxiety. Well, stop telling yourself that you're not going to like it. Stop telling yourself that, flip that, say, this could be great. This could be really good, and look at the positive. But I guess I'm bringing this up because how do you deal with that part of people who are saying, I don't like this food, or I have texture issues, or I'm not a morning person, so therefore I don't eat breakfast, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so the texture one is actually, it's like a disorder called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder that like starts from when you're young. So you really do have to retrain the palate in that way. And that comes from either not liking texture or like some type of food rules because of the macronutrients. And so retraining that. When it comes to breakfast, I have people coming to me and they love to throw science in my face. And they're like, oh, fasting, no, like this, that, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let your microbiome, and I'm like, yo, like, let me do my job. Like, that is literally my job, and get through that. But helping them get into the habit, because you're not going to be hungry because that's something you haven't done, right? Like, your body is trained, your metabolic function is trained not to be hungry at that time. But if you're having issues and you're, stuck at a certain weight, you're stuck at a certain energy level, you're feeling fidgety and anxious and thinking about food and like what have you, and not being able to regulate your body's thermostat, it's telling you it's hungry. That's the root of it, right? And so I have to get back and break through that, being like, okay, so you're busy. How do we set this up in the morning? So this is where I'll have my girls like make smoothies or overnight oats and just get in. Even if you're not hungry yet, I'm not saying like have one of those big breakfast boards with all that kind of stuff, because like I can't even eat that in the morning. Like my body just doesn't take that in. But I will have a smoothie, or I'll just have like an apple and like a protein shake kind of thing. But getting into that kind of habit, training your metabolic function, and it takes time, right? Like if you've been doing this your whole life, you just got to give yourself permission that like, I'm going to eat right now because it's something my body needs to heal. We need food, we need fuel to heal. This is different for people that, and especially when it comes to this whole like fasting thing, it's like those studies have been done on rats and men, of which my clients and myself are neither. Like these are not something that validate where we're at. We have to look at physiology, we have to look at biology, and we have to combine the two and see that, okay, we actually have to be eating in the morning, and explaining that to people, breaking it down so it's not so scary. It's like, no, like you're not going to gain all this weight just because like you're eating breakfast. You're actually going to have rocket fuel to get through the day. And that's what I see time and time again with my clients. Is like, okay, actually, like if we get you like the carbs and protein and fats that you need in the morning, how are you feeling through your work day? How are you able to actually get home from work, be able to do your workout and hang out with your kids without like going off the handle? And they're like, oh yeah, I can't do that now. That's pretty cool.
Right. And it's again, it's just amazing what our bodies can do when you give it the right things, the way it's supposed to happen, right? The way we're supposed to be doing things. The amount of energy, you don't crash in the afternoon. I mean, that's a big issue with a lot of people, is you crash. Well, of course you crash. You've given your body nothing to make you not crash, right? So
exactly.
So it is amazing how, they're the tools. We have the tools that are needed to make us do the things that we want. We just need to be aware of what that does, go through the process, set it up, and become efficient. Let our body be the efficient machine that it's supposed to be. And so I'm really glad that we're having this conversation, because I'm actually talking to you and I'm going, oh, this is something that I have. So this is what I love about the podcast, right? Is that I get people on here and we start talking, and I begin to connect the dots with myself. And so it's an amazing aspect. And I know we've had a few people on here listening, and they're agreeing with everything that we're saying, and so that's good. So hopefully this will help people really to come out and say, okay, now this all makes sense. It's not going to be scary. It's not, these diets and things that we have, it's okay. It's fine. I can make this happen. And so hopefully that's the case. And I'm getting really close to time here, but I want to give you some opportunities, because if people are listening to this and they are resonating with the things that you're saying, I want them to be able to contact you, because this is an online thing. So we don't have to be in the same state. We don't have to be here. This is something that you do online. So how can they, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is if you're over on Instagram, you can go to healingtohappy.com/Instagram, and that'll take you to mine, or you can just go to LauraMartin_H2H. If you are not an Instagrammer and you like Facebook, you can do the same thing. Healingtohappy.com/Facebook. Head over there, and that is where you will find so many free resources. It really, like, if you even go through my bio and my Instagram, it gives you here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, walking you through, because I know, like, you first have to see, you have to get kind of the feel for everything, get like either a grocery list, or you're going to get a guide or all that kind of stuff to really make sure. And then you'll kind of go from there. It'll really be a natural flow of things. But yeah, I'm most active on both of those things because I'm always in my DM. So if you have any questions at all, it is me. You can shoot me your message and you'll hear my lovely voice dancing through your speakers, answering your question.
That's awesome. And then, so when they do connect with you and they want to sign up to you, what should they expect? What's like that first little step that you're going to walk them through?
Yeah, so the first step, like I said, is walking through the free method, whether that's through my Gut Accelerator program, where that's my 1-to-1, and that's for my girlies that have literally tried it all, and they've gone and they've had like the hoses stuck in both ends, and they're still not getting results, and like they don't know what's going on. That's who I work with. We go through all of your health history. We come up with a customized portal, plan, nutrition, lifestyle, everything in between, and I'm there every step of the way. So you get to ask me all that kind of stuff. And then I have my other group program, which is the Gut Recharge program, which is the self-paced program that take it at your own pace. You get to go through each step. We walk you through the free method where you understand how to find your foundations, how to reprogram your body, how to explore different options, and then how to evolve your life to it. Really neutralizing the way we look at food, neutralizing the way we're looking at IBS, so that you can get off of that low FODMAP elimination restriction kind of thing and get back to eating chicken wings and pizza and being able to just like have a normal, thriving, feel good kind of life.
Right. And I want to bring this up because in our pre-interview before we actually scheduled the show, you mentioned something to me that I want people to consider. Like there are certain aspects that just society tells us that we just shouldn't talk about, and that's money and our digestive system, right? Because that's personal and it's embarrassing, and don't be embarrassed about that. This is, you can't make the changes in life if you're going to be closed off. And so have the conversation, be open with the conversation, and be open with yourself. And like we've said throughout this whole thing, it's okay. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to break out of the stigma that these discussions are faux pas and whatever. Because, IBS is not something that people talk about. It's an embarrassing thing. No one wants to say, hey, I have OBS, because then people are like, oh, I know what that is. And there's like some shame, but there's no shame to it. And if you are ashamed, then you by all means should get in touch with Laura, because it's not benefiting you in any aspect. So, not just your health, but your mental health at that point. There's no shame in this. So I want to encourage you that if you're dealing with some of these things, anxiety for food and IBS, for sure, reach out to Laura. Let her help you live the healthy lifestyle, make your body be the efficient machine that it's supposed to be. And just reach out to Laura, because we all need to be there. We just need to find that higher self. And this is just one more vehicle to get you there.
Honestly, so true. And like nothing feels better than like starting your day with a solid poop, and you're able to like function the rest of your day. Like no one likes being cramped up like that. So.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. People like I don't poop. You don't. Well, then there's something wrong. You should be doing that. And so yeah.
Exactly. And it's totally normal conversation. So honestly, nothing is, I get always those messages where like, sorry for the TMI. I'm like, my job isn't poop. Nothing is TMI.
Right. And then, just be open with it. Laura, I am so glad that you were on the show. I knew it was going to be. I said at the beginning, I think this is going to be a very enlightening conversation, and it certainly was for me, and I hope it was for other people. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
We'll just I will put everything that you said about how people to connect with you in the podcast notes and in the description of the live. And the other little aspect that I like to do before I sign off is to let the guest just give that last little gold nugget to the listeners. So if there's one little piece of advice that you think is should be at the forefront of people's minds, what would that be?
Can I say two things?
Absolutely.
One, everybody poops. Two, two is you cannot be at war with your body and win. Like, it does not work. Whether you're trying to manipulate your mindset, your physique, your gut health, whatever have you, if you are trying to push, prod, and force, it is not going to work. Yes, we have to create new habits. Yes, we have to do this. But the sooner you can sit in stillness and say, okay, like, what is this symptom trying to show me? And granting that permission to come through, the faster you are to heal. The quicker, if you're trying to out supplement or out diet or restrict or what have you, the longer that healing process is going to take. So when you can sit there and go, okay, cool, like this sucks, right? Like, this hurts, this is painful, this is embarrassing, whatever you're feeling, that's cool. Identify that. But then as soon as you sit there and go, but it's showing me where I need to go next. So you cannot be at war with your body and win.
Yep. Good advice. A lot of truth there. Again, Laura, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dr. Garret. This is awesome.
It was a good conversation, and anytime you want to come back, you just let me know if you have something that's pressing, because again, this is great conversation. People need to know this. This is one vehicle for the holistic approach for being completely healthy. And so it's just conversations that need to be had. So whenever you want to come back on, you just let me know and we will make that happen.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you found value in this episode, the best thing you can do is to subscribe, rate, or review this podcast. If you would like to further investigate how you can flip your mindset, feel free to contact me through my website at www.garretgoggans.com. Can't wait to catch you on the next episode.